Welcome everybody to today's Collaboard webinar, where we introduce you to Collaboard, the secure and GDPR compliant online whiteboard. And it will be an interesting session where you learn a lot about the basics of Collaboard. So what will we do today? We have a short agenda. First of all, I want to show you why are people using Collaboard. What is the reason why they're using an online whiteboard? We will dig into the basic features of the application, so you'll learn how to work with Collaboard. I will show you how you can invite guests and other people to your board to collaborate. And we will have a look at 3 specific use cases. The first is the brainstorming session. The second one is creating a mind map. And the third one is doing a retro meeting. So let's start with why Collaboard. So why Collaboard? When we work now remotely, it's quite difficult to be creative in a team. So we need a solution like an online whiteboard to be creative when working digital. And companies that start to use an online whiteboard have become more creative, that generate better ideas. And as we all know, ideas are very relevant for new products, new services, and also to drive innovation. So this is one reason why customers are using Collaboard. Then second, when we always meet remotely, we often have this situation that somebody is sharing the screen. We see a lot of slides. One person is talking, and we don't really have interactive online meetings. On the online whiteboard, everybody can interact in real time. And with this, we make the online meetings much more interactive and engaging, more interesting. And it's just a little bit different than doing it the old way. So it's a new way of doing online meetings. One big advantage is the visual collaboration. As all the people are on the whiteboard itself, they can collaborate visually by adding information, visualizing their thoughts. And this is different than just typing something in a chat. It's another way of transporting information from one end of the world to the other and make it clear what you mean to your team. And with that, we are able to increase the team productivity. While we have seen that working remotely often increases the individual's productivity because there is not the disturbance from the office anymore, team productivity is lacking. And when we start to use an online whiteboard, we bring the team together on a shared space where they can interact in real time, and this helps us to make everything a little bit more productive. A lot of customers told us that Collaboard is fairly simple to use, so it's not overloaded with thousands of features. So it has an Italian design, and we will look a little bit later that everything is quite simple. And the big benefit of that is that we have a quite fast user adoption. So it doesn't take people a lot of time to learn Collaboard. We also differentiate between 2 kinds of people. So the ones who really prepare the meetings and the workshops, these are the more advanced users. Of course, they need to know the tool a little bit better. And so we have this fast user adoption. And the third part is that Collaboard is also a very secure solution. So as I told at the beginning, it's a GDPR compliant. We offer secure hosting in Europe. And for our customers that don't want to go to the cloud, we also offer an on-prem solution. So you can host Collaboard on your own data centers to keep full control about the data. So here we are quite flexible. Yeah, these are the reasons why people are using Collaboard. Now let's have a look at the basic features of our solution. So first of all, when you start a new project in Collaboard, you have an infinite whiteboard canvas to work on. And what does this mean? So this means you can digitize here easily your flip chart, which is usually A3 or something like this. But you can also digitize a whiteboard, a blackboard, or even a complete project room, because now here you only see a few sticky notes. But on this infinite whiteboard canvas, you can have thousands of sticky notes, and this solves the problem of having overbooked rooms in companies, because you can really do these workshops, team meetings, and everything directly in Collaboard. And then when we have people on this infinite canvas working together, they're doing workshops, generating ideas, plan projects, doing decision-making, strategizing, organizing, having trainings, workshops, and seminar, and so on. So these are some things people usually do on this infinite whiteboard. So that's the first feature I want to tell you. Now, the second thing people usually do when they start working with a whiteboard, they add notes. So you see that in Collaboard here on the left side, we have this, this menu, the menu bar, where we can add notes to the board. And you can do this quite easily. There are square notes or rectangles. And there are two ways to add notes. So usually when you work by yourself, you just click on the color and then the note appears in the middle of the canvas. When you do a workshop with a group, then it's much more convenient if the people drag and drop the note to the place where they want to have it. So with this drag and dropping, you solve the problem that all the notes are at the same position and overlapping each other. And sticky notes are the things people use the most in Collaboard for the brainstorming session, but also for adding tests, ideas, or like I'm using them now for a presentation, just to visualize content here directly. What's quite cool is that while you can use here the menu bar to add notes, in Collaboard you also can do a double click on the canvas. So like I'm doing here, and with a double click, I also add a note. So when you do a brainstorming session and you're really in a creative flow and ideas just come after one another, you can use this double click to add ideas quite fast to the canvas itself. And this is the feature of sticky notes. Collaboard is an online whiteboard. This is why it's also important that you can sketch and draw. And when we designed the solution for us, it was essential that we provide you the drawing tools you usually know as well from the real world, maybe from the flip chart, from the whiteboard, and so on. So you see we have here 5 different pens, like a nib, a marker, there's a highlighter, a brush, and so on. So you can be really artistic when you want. And a lot of people use Collaboard for visualizations in workshops. So you see some examples we created here to basically visualize ideas, concept, and so on. And when we talk about the visual collaboration and you have a tablet or a device with the pen, then you're very fast by sketching an idea or drawing something like a small process or whatever to explain this to your audience and make it much easier for them to understand. When you draw in Collaboard, there is a tip. So we have 2 keyboard shortcuts. They're quite simple. So if you just click D for draw, then you can draw. And if you press E, then you just select the eraser and you can erase something. So that's usually how people work here with Collaboard. When you draw, the keyboard shortcuts makes things a little bit faster. Of course, you can always go here and also change something. What I really like is that I only need to draw things once. So let's say here, this headline, I like that. So I just copy and paste it so I can reuse it. And maybe for my workshop now, I don't want to have it in black. So I can just change the color or the size. I think in this case, we just need to move the text away. And when we move the text away, as everything is now ink, we can change here the color. And let's say we want to have it in the Collaboard green. So we can adjust this with one click. So we get quite fast and we can reuse our drawings and visualizations for other workshops as well. So what I really like is doing things once, a little bit beautiful, and then reuse this for other purposes. And these are these very simple functionalities in Collaboard, like the sticky notes and the drawing. Oh. It's possible to add images. And there are 3 different ways how you can add images. So usually everything you add to the board, you do here over this left side. So first of all, you can upload an image from your device. That's quite straightforward. You either drag and drop this image, or you just click here on Browse Files, and then you add the image. A second option is to use here the web search. So what I can do here, I can search for images. Let's say you do a brainstorming session and your team is out of ideas. You maybe bring just a provocative image so they can continue to brainstorm and add some more ideas. And when we see here now these images, we can just drag and drop them directly to the canvas. What I like to do in my workshops at the beginning, usually we do an icebreaker exercise. And when we do an icebreaker, we take a picture of everybody. So here we have the option to use the camera in Collaboard. On this device here, I don't have a camera. This is why it's not detected. But of course, when you have a camera, you can take a picture. And that's a very nice thing at the beginning of the workshop, if everybody is taking a selfie and adding this directly to the board itself. And this is how you can use images, and they're great for visualizations. You see here, I'm using images as SVGs with a transparent background. So Collaboard is also taking account about this transparency of images. Now, while an image says more than 1,000 words, there is something that says more than 1,000 images, and these are videos. So videos is something I consider as highly important when we talk about remote collaboration, because we want to make this whole digital experience much more personal. And being able to add videos to the online whiteboard just opens up a new chapter of doing things when collaborating remotely. There are as well 3 ways how to add videos. First of all, there is the option to add a video from YouTube. So let's say you're interested in one of our Collaboard tutorials, where you find a lot of them on YouTube. You can just go here, and then you can drag and drop a video directly to the board itself from YouTube. Now it's embedded here on the board. The second option is that you can upload a video from your device. And then the third option is as well that you can record a video with the camera. So you can do this directly in Collaboard. There is no other application needed. And what's the cool thing when we add here a video, we can use this, for example, to leave a personal message on the board. Let's say after a workshop, we do a feedback round. And instead of just writing the feedback into sticky notes, everybody is recording a video. If you look at this later, it's much more personal than just reading some words. Or let's say you invite a group of people for an online meeting or for a brainstorming session. And maybe you know not everybody will be here exactly at the same time. Maybe you do a short video of what's the purpose of this meeting, put it on the board, and everybody who is accessing the board can watch the video at the beginning. So there are many ways how you can use this. And if I look at the younger generations nowadays, videos is so omnipresent in everything they do. And this is why we thought it's also very important to integrate videos on the online whiteboard itself. So next to the videos, it's also possible to add or import documents to Collaboard. So we support here the common file formats like PDF, Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. And if you upload these documents to Collaboard, they are displayed like this one here. So we can zoom in a little bit. And this is now our product presentation with 19 slides. First of all, I can browse through these slides. This is one thing I can do. And a second thing is that I can extract these pages. So let's say page 5 and 6 are important to us. And this is the content we would like to discuss in our meeting. So here we can just say, let's extract page 5 to 6. And what's happening now is that we generate images out of this content. So we see now they're like a printout just next to the original document. And when we start discussing this now, or when we do a presentation and we want to highlight what's important, we can now leverage the ink functionality plus the upload of documents. So let's see here, I would like to tell you again that Collaboard has this infinite workspace and you can add all these things like images, documents, and so on. So I can use the highlighter, which is very convenient. And also when you use Collaboard just for a presentation, you can mark the important things. When you collaborate, it's also nice. So you can, for example, use the pen and say, okay, I'm not really sure about that. Maybe we need to move it here, and so on. So using this combination of uploading documents and the ink functionality provide you really a cool way for this visual collaboration. Now, another big advantage of uploading documents or importing documents to Collaboard is that you can reuse your existing content. So this means when you already have a presentation or whatever, you can reuse this in Collaboard and you don't need to create everything from scratch. So you can bring in your existing content to the whiteboard. Now, the second last feature we can add to the board itself or element, these are shapes. So in Collaboard, there are 216 shapes you can use. So you see here, there are these standard shapes like the circle, a rectangle, triangle, and so on. But then there are a lot of other shapes, and this depends a little bit on your use case. For example, animals are great if people need to work with an avatar. So let's say you ask a question and there are two answers, and people need to answer this now on the online whiteboard. So maybe they just take a shape as an avatar and move it into this area to answer the question. Of course, there are shapes like devices for wireframings, emoticons, and it goes further also to shapes that support you in modeling processes directly on the board itself. So these are real shapes and they are all royalty free because we designed them by ourselves. So let's say we add here now this group of people. So if you want to change something, we just select that. And now here we have the option to choose a different fill color. We can also change the border if we want, and so on. So this is a very nice way how to work with shapes on the board. And a lot of these basic shapes are usually used to structure and style a board itself. We will have a look at this in a few moments. Now, the last thing we can put on the online whiteboard is web content. So it is possible to embed web content directly on the board. So what I did here is embedding the Collaboard website. So you see now I have a fully working website directly here on our board, which I can basically use and browse through. So I can click on the website, I can look at the different use cases of Collaboard. That's one way. And another thing I really like is the option to embed GIFs. So if you have a GIF like here, you can embed this directly to the board. To do this is fairly simple. You just create an embed code for a GIF. This could also be like Google Maps or YouTube video, or in case you don't use YouTube, but you use Vimeo or another video provider, you might be able to create an iframe. And then you can use here the embed feature in Collaboard, just to copy and paste the content in here, like the web URL or the iframe, and then you see this directly on the board. And this allows you, of course, to put much more, a lot of different elements directly onto the board and makes Collaboard even more interactive. So starting from these fairly simple features like digital sticky notes, the inking and the drawing, we go to a much more complex digital workspace experience with all these other functionality and things we can put to the board. Now let's have a look at the first use case. So we would like to do a brainstorming session. When we do a brainstorming session, the first thing usually we need to do, as we don't want to do this alone, we invite people to the project. And I will now spend a few minutes on explaining you how to do that, because there are different options. and it's important to know how this is working. So if I click here on Share Project, I see that window. And now I have two options. I can just enter here an email address and invite somebody by email. That's the most secure way, because that only the person with the email and this account can access your project. So it's not possible to forward this link to somebody else and use this with another account. But if I would like to invite you all now onto my board, it will be very complicated for me to add here all the email addresses and so on. And this is why we also offer you another solution. And the other solution is to share a link or basically create a QR code. And we differentiate between two kinds of users. So here we have registered users, and then we have anyone with a link. So no sign up required. Usually we call them guest users. Guest users also don't need a license. So that's very convenient. So if you're working with clients, you can just add them as a guest to your board, and they don't need to create an account or purchase a license. Now, when we want to generate this link, we also need to decide what permissions people should initially have when they access the board. So a common scenario is that you have a group of people, maybe the workshop team, who is creating the board. So for them, we all want to have editor permissions, while the guests who are accessing our board at the beginning, they just should have viewer permissions. So we can generate one link that incorporates both of these elements. As I said at the beginning, security is something very important to us. This is why we have here some additional security features. So first of all, we can define how long the link shall be valid. And second of all, we can also create the password to add an additional factor to make even things more secure. Now I'm just generating here a link, and usually then I just share this link via chat, copy this into another browser, and in a few seconds, people are on our board. So we see now here, next to Albert, we have also Michael, who joined our board, and now we could start with the brainstorming session almost immediately. So let's imagine we have now a group of people on our board and we want to do a brainstorming session. First of all, we will generate ideas. And usually there are two options how you can do this in Collaboard. First, everybody is just adding notes and write the ideas on them. This is convenient when the people already worked a little bit with the whiteboard and they know how to add the notes. If you have first-time users, it can be good if you just create a note repository for them. So I did this here just to show you an example. So here I used a shape basically and some text to visualize that this is a note repository. Now, how would this work? People just grab a sticky note, put it here, and then they write down their idea. Now, there is one thing you need to take care of, because maybe somebody is not clicking exactly on the sticky note. Maybe they're clicking here on this frame, and then they could move that. And you don't want this to happen. So usually when you prepare a meeting, a workshop, or a session with Collaboard, you should take care about locking all the elements which should be interactive. So if you want to do that, we can just select here this rectangle and the text. And now when we click on these three dots, we have the option to lock the content. And when it's locked, you prevent that somebody is accidentally moving it. And that's a very useful feature. And when you worked already with an online whiteboard, I'm sure you're familiar with the lock concept, that this is highly important when you have an unexperienced user on your board. So let's say we generated a lot of ideas. Now the next step would be to basically group these ideas or to cluster them. So we see here a group of ideas which are already created. Now, what can we do? So we can now either select each of them by clicking Control So here we have the option to multi-select different elements. Now for 6 or 10 elements, this is absolutely feasible to do that. Another option is to use this area select. So if we use the area select, in this case, we can just select everything here, and then we can, let's say, make it smaller, make it bigger, and here are this group functionality. So if we create now a group, we can always move the group at the same time. There is one tip: instead of going always here to the menu and choosing this area select, I can also use the keyboard shortcut R. And if I just click on the keyboard key R, then I can start with this area select immediately, and also with R I can disable that. So that's very convenient. Now let's ungroup everything. And there is another option. So let's say we have here all these sticky notes, we can also stack them. And I really like the stack feature because it's, for me, it's a clean up feature, so clean up your board. And if I click on that, we see now we have here a stack of elements, and we can now browse through these elements if you want to do that. So if you have a lot of ideas, that's a very simple way to also clean up a little bit your board. And of course, if you want to unstack, you just click here again, and then all the sticky notes are in the place on which they have been before. So this is usually then the next thing. Let's say we clustered and grouped our ideas, and now we want to decide which idea is the best one of a cluster or a group. In Collaboard, there is an option to rate and vote on ideas. If you as a user have the facilitator role on a board, so there's a specific role for facilitator or like the project owner, then you have the option to start here a voting session. And if we start a voting session, we can basically do two things. So we can have a like session, so where you can define how many likes a person should have. So let's say here we would like that everybody has 5 likes. Or another option is that we do a rating. And this is like a product rating on an online shop or whatever, where you can rate something from 1 to 5 stars. And these two mechanisms combined with each other are really great because they allow you to figure out quite fast which idea, which concept is considered by the group as the best one or the most liked one. Let me show you how a rating session is working in Collaboard. So I'm using here the rating session. We can couple this with a timer. So let's say we just do 2 minutes. And now we define who shall take part in this voting session. In our case, we have just Michael on the board, so that's quite easy. And as soon as we start now the session, we see that here we have these options to vote. So we can now say, okay, this idea has 3 stars, this 2 stars, and so on. And of course, then the other people can do this as well, which are on the board. And you as the facilitator, you can end then the voting session. And when you have done this, you can always go here back. You see then an archive, and you can look at the session details. And we see now idea has 1 with 3 stars, and then there was idea 2 and 3 with just 2 stars. And the idea of the voting and rating is just to make it easier for you when working online to basically find out what people think. It's always anonymous, so you don't know who voted what. In case you would like to know what people voted on, so if you want to get their opinion, then there could be another option. So maybe you just say, take an avatar or take a shape, like I'm using this shape here. Now I'm putting here my initials and say, okay, I'm still a big fan of idea 1. So I'm just using here my star. So just as an idea, how to do the voting in another way. So let's imagine you created a lot of ideas, you clustered them, and now you figured out which idea is the best. Maybe you want to share this with your attendees, and as the people just were guests, they might not have forever access to these Collaboard projects. So what we can do in this case, we can share the results of our session by exporting this. And there are two options. So let's say we just want to export a specific section on the board, like this image and this text. We select both of them. And now we can click here on these three dots and we just say export selection. And now we have three options. We can export everything as an image, as a PDF, or as a text file. I think image and PDF, that's quite clear. It just creates an image and a PDF of what you see here. When you click on text, then we generate a CSV file with all the content. Why is this useful? Imagine you have 100 sticky notes with ideas, tasks, or something like this. If you generate now a CSV file, you can use this content, you can import this into other applications, you can sort the idea better, and so on. So this is why we have these different export options for the board itself. And we can export just selection, or here we have also the option to export the whole board as an image, a PDF, or a text. So these are both of the options. These are the three options we have here in Collaboard for exporting content. Yes, and that's the use case for brainstorming. A lot of people are using Collaboard in a similar way to generate ideas, to be creative online. Now, when talking about creativity, another great tool is adding mind maps. So let's move a little bit up on our board to the section here, where I want to talk a little bit about mind mapping. So when you want to start a mind map, usually you add like a central node, like the core idea or the core concept. I recommend to use here, let's say, a shape, like let's take this circle, and here we create our mind maps. Now, I'm not a big fan of a circle. When I did mind maps at school on real paper, usually I didn't have a circle, I had something more like an oval. And in this case, I'm just, let's say, unlock the ratio of this shape, and I make it an oval. And because I like colors, let's colorize it in green, also with the border, for example. And now we can start adding ideas. So let's say in this case, we want to add an idea with a text. So I'm just adding a text object. Let's make it a little bigger for our case. And we say here first idea. To create a mind map, we need now to connect these things. So when you select an element, you see here these 4 circles. And now what you can do, you can just use one circle and connect it with the other element. If you want now to add a second idea, we just use copy paste, and we add these ideas quite fast. Now, when you create mind maps in Collaboard, you're not limited to use shapes and text, because you can also say, okay, maybe I want to have a node and link the node. So in the end, this concept is, let's say, universal. Every element, if this is an image, a video, or whatever, can be linked with others. Now, there is one thing I don't like about this mind map. It's the connection. So for me, they're too thin. I would like them to be a little bit thicker and also colorful. So what I can do now, I can select all of them. So I'm just doing this by clicking on Control and selecting all the connections. Now let's make them a little bit thicker, and I want to have them in the same blue. So I can just use here this color picker, get here the blue, and maybe we also want to have an arrow in the end. That's not a like mind map style, but it's also something you can do here. And with this, I want to tell you, you can really adjust these connections based on your needs. And not only use this to create a mind map, but also to map a process, to design a workflow, an org chart, or whatever. So this is really a functionality that offers you a lot of different use cases connecting these elements with each other. Now, the last use case we will have a look at together is the retro meeting. So what we see here is a template I already added, which is the sailboat retrospective. So just very shortly, it's about you're on a sailboat, you have some wind, you have an anchor, like the wind is bringing you forward, the anchor is holding you back, the island is the goal, and so on. And now the idea is that people add sticky notes to do this retro meeting based on this story we have here. Now, what you see here is a template from Collaboard. So when you start working with Collaboard, you don't need to start always from scratch. Because if you look here on the left side, you have this option to choose templates. And now you see a variety of templates we provide out of the box, like very standard one, like a SWOT analysis, there's a bullseye diagram. There are different templates for strategy, marketing, and so on. And you can just add these templates directly to the board and use them for your use cases, basically. This makes it easier for people who are new to an online whiteboard because they see, oh, okay, these templates is something already other people used as well. And what I like personally, you also have these drawings, which I have shown before as a template. So if you want to use them in your project, you don't need to draw them by yourself. You can just add them as a template directly to the board. And with this, I am almost done with the presentation. So this is everything I wanted to show you today. So now let's have a look at the possible next steps. So first, there is the red door. So you can think about joining our next webinar, which is on the 23rd of November. And in this webinar, we will talk more about the advanced features of Collaboard, like there's a functionality called Quick Link, there's a presentation mode. So in this webinar, you will learn more about how to facilitate the workshop, prepare a board, getting faster. So it's more for advanced users, while the webinar today is more for the basic functionality of Collaboard. Of course, you can also go through the green door and start a trial. So we offer a free trial of Collaboard of all the advanced features. I will send you afterwards an email where you can easily sign up for a trial, and we provide you that. And the third door is the option that you can get some support for your online whiteboard project. And let's now together use this third door. And with this, I want to show you one last feature in Collaboard. So it's possible to add links to every object. Like here, these doors are something like a button. And user can just click here, and now they're jumping to the next board. And basically, if you want to learn more about Collaboard, or if you have specific questions about security, GDPR, different hosting options of an online whiteboard, don't hesitate to contact me. If you're on LinkedIn, you can just scan this QR code and connect with me. And just to let you know, my name is Michael Görg. I work at IBV. IBV is a Swiss software company, and we're looking forward to celebrate the 40th anniversary next month. So it's a quite old company. And 5 years ago, we founded Collaboard in IBV. And this is why I have now also 5 years of experience working with online whiteboards. And we work together with companies all over the world, and most of our customers have a specific need for security, and this is when Collaboard is, of course, a very good fit. So you see my email address. I'm happy to connect on LinkedIn. And we're jumping back to our main board. And as I told you at the beginning, Collaboard usually provides you an infinite whiteboard. So let's just zoom out here so we see an overview about the whole presentation we had today. And with this, I want to say thank you for being here, for your interest into Collaboard, and we will end the official session now. So I will stop the recording, and now we have time for your question.